my name's James Nicholson and welcome to my channel. There's a lot going on this week. Tomorrow we've got the King's speech, and it's likely that the Renters Reform Act is going to be reactivated in that as a priority to become law. Now that includes Section 21 being abolished. So I want to talk about that. You've also tomorrow got the inflation data. That's really important for interest rates. And so we want to keep an eye on that. So there's a lot going on. Today's video, we're going to talk about the Renters Reform Act, what will be included. What do we think about Section 21 coming active again? Because Labour promised to abolish Section 21 on day one of being in power. Obviously, that didn't happen. But how serious are they about getting it through very, very quickly? Now, before we jump into this video, as always, if you haven't done already, do subscribe to the channel over there and hit the bell notification. We're on the way to 26,000 subscribers now. Thank you to everyone that subscribes. Am I here? Smash like, tick or like, do something to that like button. You want to make sure you get the word out on this content, and that really helps me do that. So thanks to everyone. So, what are we? The last King's speech when the Tories were in power was a really impactful one. We had the Leasehold Reform Act, and it actually passed, became law, and is now working its way to becoming an active law at the moment. That was a big, big thing. We also had the Renters Reform Act, which it did get passed, but didn't quite get the sign-off when the Tories ended up calling the general election. So Labour's now in power. Their manifesto said they will abolish Section 21 immediately, and it's looking like they will bring back the Renters Reform Bill tomorrow, pretty much as it is. It doesn't look like there's going to be any major changes or anything like that. So I want to talk about the Renters Reform Bill and the Section 21 in particular, so we can see what we might expect tomorrow. So, Renters Reform Act. This has a lot of landlords worried. And the biggest part is the Section 21 being abolished. That means they're not going to get their properties back as easy. But some of this stuff isn't actually as bad as you might think. So I want to just give you a quick reminder, a refresher on what was included. So one of the main things that will impact people is rolling tenancies. So right now, if you have a tenant and they're going into your property, I've got someone that's doing some viewings this week on the new property I've got, even though it's a building site. That's how much demand there is at the moment. And so that tenant will come in on a 6-month or a 12-month tenancy because the Renters Reform Act is not active. So I prefer 12 months. Every 12 months, the agents will just check, do I want to re-let to that same person? Do they want to stay? Are we keeping the rent at the same level? Is it going up, down, or just holding? Or is anything else important needed to be addressed at that time? And it kind of gives everyone that good opportunity to part ways if it's just not working. Normally, most of the tenants that I've got, we renew, and that just is then a process of going through everything, and the estate agent extends them by 12 months. Now what the government are saying in the Renters Reform Act is that you'll take a tenancy, the initial first 4 months, the tenant is obligated to stay there because the landlord has a cost of inventory, listing on Rightmove, or the estate agent fees. Although you don't list it on Rightmove, the agent does it for you and charges you for that. And so that's the new one will be that the tenant has to stay there for 4 months. Then they can give 2 months notice, meaning there's a minimum of 6 months that they can stay. Then the tenancy just rolls forever, right? They could be there for 50 years. And so then in that period of time, you will need to do certain things. So you will potentially want to increase your rent. So that's something that will be important, and I'm going to address that in a second. But you also will do inspections and stuff like that. But the tenancy will just go on and on and on. Now, for me, I don't have a massive problem with this. I just think it's less paperwork, less things that you'll need to remember, is probably not as good for the estate agents, the letting agents, because they make a fee each tenancy agreement that is issued. So rolling tenancies are going to become mandatory. Now, one element that was worried about this was student lets. Because look, what happens if you didn't get the student out at the end of the the school calendar year? So there is an amendment that means if you run it as a student let, it'll pretty much stay the same. It's not going to be massively different for student lets. So they don't have to worry about the rolling tenancies. Now, rent increases. This is something that is worrying a few people. I don't see this as a problem either. And so rent increases, you will be allowed to do one rent increase per year. I've never done more than that anyway. So I don't see a problem with that. So one annual rent increase, and you have to give 2 months notice. It was 1 month notice before. You'll now have to give 2 months notice. Again, I just don't see that as a big deal. I don't know why lots of landlords are getting worried about that. Like, I've never increased the rent more than once in a year. I have, just to be totally transparent, I've had a tenant that has left, and then a new tenant I have increased the rent. So I guess effectively they might have had a rent increase in that period of time and then go out at market value when I relist the property. But I've never increased more than twice in 1 year. So I don't see the problem with that. There is no restrictions on the amount that you can increase or anything like that. However, this is where some people are a little worried. There is now there will be a tribunal that people can go to if they feel the rent increase is excessive or unfair. So that will obviously stop landlords hiking rents by 20, 30%, which some people have done, right? And so if there is not a justified reason, interest rate increases would be a justified reason. And if you're just doing it because you want to, that means that it's unfair and you could have problems. So you just need to keep your rents going up fairly so you don't have any big jumps. That's important. Next is pets, right? So this is a concern. Landlords have all now got to consider pets. They've got to respond in writing if they have an objection to the pets. That could be that their lease just doesn't allow them to do that. So if they're in a leasehold property and there's no pets allowed, that would be a reasonable reason. And that is a consideration. So the tenant has to, in writing, ask if they can have a pet. The landlord has to consider it and write back in writing as well. Again, I'm not got a massive problem. I know some landlords have had problems with pets. I haven't. I found that when I've had a tenant that has pets, they normally stay longer. They become more loyal because it's a bit more difficult for them to move around and stuff. But I do see why that potentially could be a problem. Now, the next one is the last one is the most important, and that is Section 21. Now, Section 21 is a no-fault eviction. That means for any reason, you can get your property back. And a lot of landlords like that. You can get your property back quickly within 2 months. They're talking about abolishing this. Now, that is likely that they will talk about that in the King's speech. However, the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, has already said they will get challenged on that in the courts. And they know that it isn't something that's just going to be rolled out overnight. Already backtracking on their manifesto promise to abolish it immediately. I said this would happen. The Tories had the same issue. They wanted to get this through. They wanted this law to be passed before the election. They couldn't get it done. And this was the sticking point, the Section 21. Now, Section 21, a lot of landlords do use it unfairly. Right, so, and that's the problem, is the charities, shelter, and all these people have got thousands of people coming to them saying, I've got a no-fault eviction, how can I stay in the property? And it really is difficult in order for them to stay. And so that is causing lots of problems, and landlords aren't doing themselves any favours. But some landlords prefer to have this security. They're not looking to use it, but they want to know that if they need to get their house back quickly, they don't have to go through the courts. They don't have to go through the Section 8 process, which is a fault eviction, not paying your rent, causing problems, antisocial behaviour. That's a longer process. And so what Property Mark are saying, and lots of people that are on the landlord side of things, is the courts aren't ready. The Tories already admitted that. The courts cannot deal with this. So what I think will happen is the Renters Reform Bill will likely get mentioned in the King's speech tomorrow. It will work through Parliament. It will get passed as a bill, as it did under the Tories. And I think the Section 21 part will be exactly the same. That when the courts are ready, that will become law. That will tick it off for Labour so they can say, we did it, the Tories didn't. But it still means that Section 21 will still be an active thing that you can use, I think, for years to come. It's going to take a long time in order for courts to get ready and be able to deal with the influx of new Section 8s or whatever they come as an alternative to evict people if you need to. So I think it's interesting. I think we should be watching tomorrow. I'll be doing a video after the King's speech with all the property related stuff. I think there could be quite a lot in there. So another reason to subscribe and hit the bell. And look, let me know, do you think Section 21 will be abolished immediately? Or do you think it's going to be the same as the Tories said, that they've got to get the courts sorted first? Let me know what you think in the comments. Do subscribe, do smash the like button, and check out all the other content on my channel, including this video right here.